think he certainly should be viewed as one of the favorites looking to the Indy Car Grand Prix in the 103rd running of the Indianapolis 500. Some decent results from others, like I mentioned, Scott Dixon and a few others in the mix as well. But I think right now the focus and the momentum certainly is with Mr. Rossi as we get toward the month of May.
I tell you what, I'm excited to have them come. You know what? It's kind of like, I always like to reference it to Christmas. It's like we get excited about it as we get closer and closer and closer. And I know a few years ago when they started the Grand Prix, people were like, do we really want another race in May? Well, heck yeah, we want another race in May. And granted, the Grand Prix doesn't get the attendance level that the Indianapolis 500 does. Obviously, people who are doing traveling, I've got a friend that's coming in for the Indianapolis 500. They're not going to be able to make both races. But if you're within driving distance, it's well worth the while. The Indianapolis Grand Prix is unique in a lot of ways because everybody knows, though, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is an oval track. But one weekend out of the month of May, they turned that oval track into a road course. And as we know, that was created back when we had Formula One coming here, and they did good about able to keep that track going and being able to keep that track making money. So to me, to my knowledge, it's the only track that does this. They literally conform from a road course to an oval course and then back to an oval course in just a matter of a short period of time. But the Indianapolis Grand Prix, that's up next in just a couple of weeks. Talk with us a little bit about how special the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is. And again, the only track that I know of in the world that can conform from a road course to an oval course in just a matter of days.
Other than Daytona, I can't think of one either. You talk about the big events here, and within 48 hours of completing it, then its focus immediately shifts to getting ready for time trial weekend. So certainly it's a changeover. It's also a changeover for the teams to get the road course kit off and get the oval kit ready to go and get a car ready to go from 104 mile an hour or 100 mile an hour lap time or lap speeds to 220, 230 miles an hour. I mean, it's a big changeover in a very short period of time, but these guys do it like it's nothing.
I tell you what, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, those who have never been there do not understand how special it is. You know, one of my favorite things to do is to come across from the media lot and come down through the tunnel. And as I'm coming through the tunnel, oftentimes I will hear cars just zoom, zoom across there. It's still to this day, and I'm 50 years old and I've been going to that track most of my life, still to this day gives me goosebumps to walk through that tunnel and to hear those cars on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway truly is one of the greatest tracks in the world. Until you get the chance to experience that, it is unbelievable. So I encourage anybody and everybody to do that. Well, let's talk about IndyCar. Let's get into the stables. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of it all. Certainly we have some news that we talked about earlier, but overall, let's talk a little bit about some of the staples coming into the month of May. Let's start with the biggest of them all, and that's Team Penske. Obviously, Joseph Newgarden among the leaders there in Penske. So let's talk about some of these stables as we get ready for the month of May. Let's start with Team Penske.
Well, Greatology doesn't lie. I still have Will Power and Elio Castroneves 1-2 on my list. I have, let's see here, Joseph Newgarden at 4 and Simon Pagenaud at 8. So if there's any concern about them failing to qualify, I sure don't see it. I mean, you have all 4 of them on my list at least making the top 9 without much difficulty. So much less the top 30. So you look at them, I think they're solidly there, and they certainly will be a favorite when we get to race day as well.
As we look at our rookies going into the month of May, not only the Indianapolis Grand Prix, but the Indianapolis 500 specifically, rookies is always a big thing. In fact, rookies have to go through a special training course. They have to pass that test. Most do. In fact, I don't know that any that hasn't, but still, it's part tradition and part formality. And just the fact that being a rookie at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is unlike being a rookie anywhere else. We look at Hurd, probably one of the biggest rookies coming into this year's season. Talk with us about the rookie class of 2019.
Well, obviously, you talk about the big three, and certainly you have one with the power team with Felix Rosenquist, with Ganassi, and you certainly have one with Colton Herta with the Harding Steinbrenner car, which is getting certainly support from the Andretti Autosport camp, so that means that car is going to be competitive. And then you have Pato O'Ward with the Carlin and the Alonso ties. That car also is certainly going to be competitive when we get to 16th to Georgetown. So I'd say beyond as far as competitive years, this compares well with Ed Jones, the rookie class in 2017, and I think it also compares well to the 2014 rookie class that also featured the NASCAR veteran Kurt Busch.
Well, absolutely. So what do rookies have to know? If we've seen this time and time again. I always say that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a beast within a beast. And if you do not respect the track at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that beast will come out and get you. The best advice we can give to rookies at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway trying to qualify for the 103rd running of the Indianapolis 500 is what?
First thing, you sound just like Brian Barnhart in those Indy 500 review videos of 2004, 2005. That's exactly what he said in the first drivers' meeting. But I digress. Beyond that, though, I tell you what, you have got to bring your A game. There's no question. I mean, it's a different ball of wax than anything these drivers have faced this season. We have run on, tight road courses like at Barber, and we've run on street circuits at St. Pete and at Long Beach, and a semi-mix of the both with the Indy Car Grand Prix coming up on the road course. This is a totally different ball game here, where you're talking, like I said, an increase in speed and an increase in the danger zone and the scare zone as well. So you have to be able to do it. And again, a 36 to 38 car entry list, you've got to bring your A game right away. Otherwise, you will be in danger of missing the show, like what we could see with several names are on the bottom of my Gridicology list, which I don't have in front of me, but I could tell you guys like, for instance, the two with Dreyer and Reinbold, Sage Karam, J.R. Hildebrand are in that danger zone. Another rookie, Marcus Ericsson, is certainly down there. And you also have concerns about whether or not guys like Jordan King or Ben Hanley with Dragon Speed, two more rookies, whether or not they're going to make the cut. So I think you look at that scenario, and certainly the rookie class, while it's very top-heavy at the top, there are also some at the bottom of the list, like I mentioned, in Erickson, Hanley, and King. Question not, are they going to make the cut, is also a question mark.
We're talking with Matthew Embry from WSBT up in South Bend, our official IndyCar contributor. And we were talking about the entry list for the 103rd running, the projected entry list that is at the Indianapolis 500. It has been trimmed by one after Junco Racing owner Ricardo Juncos confirmed his team will field one car in May. I quote, we're going to be announcing this pretty soon, maybe in the next few weeks, but it's only going to be one car. And a lot of people think Kyle Kozler won the 2017 Indy Lights Championship with Juncos and contested for 4 IndyCar races last year, including Indianapolis, is said to be the candidate for the number 32 Chevy.
So, yeah, Kaiser is going to be likely the lone entry there. Also, we should mention it was also cut by one by Harding Steinbrenner. We thought they were going to run 2 cars. They are going to run just one, and I think for those cars on the bubble, I thought that was a spot stealer for Harding Steinbrenner had they run a second car, whether it was Jay Howard or Carlos Munoz. So you talk about breathing a sigh of relief. The fact that Harding Steinbrenner is only running one car, I think, is a savior for those drivers that are in the danger zone. I don't think the second Juncos car was in any position, I think, to really challenge for one of the starting spots. But I think that Harding Steinbrenner car that was that is not going to come to fruition certainly was.
Well, let's kind of get into the standings, as we've just got a few minutes left before we have to get into the NASCAR talk. But we're going into the month of May as we look at the standings. What are your thoughts? I mean, Joseph Newgarden, Alexander Rossi, obviously Scott Dixon, all in the mix of the top coming into there to Indianapolis this month. I really got to like Joseph Newgarden. And am I too bold? Am I too early? Is it too soon to say that Joseph Newgarden is going to win an Indianapolis 500 this year?
I don't think he's the guy. The 2 years that he's been with the captain, he has looked good everywhere except Indy. Unlike, the Paganots, the Powers, the Casadevises, he's actually taken a step back since he's joined Penske compared to when he was with, say, what used to be, Carpenter Fisher, now it's just Carpenter. And, I mean, it sounds weird that I'm saying that, but it's true. I mean, I think there's just an extra pressure that is there when you join the captain's team, and it just depends on how you handle it. I mean, while several drivers have flourished because of it, Ryan Briscoe's name comes to mind as one of those that went from an average driver to a successful driver when he joined the captain. I just don't see where you could say Joseph Newgarden has been a contender for the Indy 500 since joining Penske. I think actually it's been the exact opposite as far as his competitive nature at the Brickyard as opposed to when he was not a member of this organization.
That's a valid point, but let's also make a note with Joseph Newgarden, and maybe no comparison, but certainly a teammate. Will Power has done very, very well. For the longest time, could not win the big race. Penske knows how to win the big race. Penske knows how to put drivers in the winner's circle. If you don't think they're not taking data from Will Power and giving it to Joseph Newgarden, well, they are. And Joseph Newgarden has shown to me that he can be a very competitive, aggressive driver, which is what it takes to win at the Indianapolis 500. But we never know, and that's part of the excitement. Of course, you never know who's going to win any race, but just the excitement of talking about who's going to win a race. What about Ryan Hunter-Reay? Is he another a candidate for another win at Indianapolis?
Well, let's get to the Newgarden situation with Power. Sometimes a driver's style does not match. So something that will work for Will Power may not necessarily work for Joseph Newgarden. I think that's one thing you got to keep an eye on. As far as Ryan Hunter-Reay, I don't think he'll be qualifying well. I don't think he'll be up there, say, with Marco Andretti and Alexander Rossi near the front of the grid. But if the cars are more competitive and it's easier to pass as opposed to last year, you have to include him in there because I don't think there's been a more consistent threat to win the Indy 500 in the last 5 years than Ryan Hunter-Reay.
So I'm going to throw an extreme dark horse out there. It's not a dark horse from the capability of the driver. It's just a dark horse from the aspect of I just don't know that the team has. It would be nice. It would be nice, but how big? What's bigger? The actual winner of the 500, or if Fernando Alonso is the winner of the 500? Which of those stories is bigger?
I think Alonso is a threat. It just depends right now how committed Carlin is to it. I mean, they had a very good test at the private test in Texas. They will be at the open test coming up on Wednesday of this upcoming week. If they are I don't know if they're going to release the numbers to that test or not. IMS in Indy Car have kept the numbers under lock and key for some of these other private tests that have recently happened at the Speedway. But I think if Alonso shows himself well, he certainly not only is a threat to make the top 9, I have him currently, I think, 14th or 15th on my current Griditology list. I think he is a threat to win the race because, remember, he was in contention until that blown engine in 2017, not just for Rookie of the Year, but he had a bona fide chance to win that race. Marco
Andretti. We like to talk about him because of his last name. That's probably the only reason that we do like to talk about him. That said, he's had his issues at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. to include running out of gas. Who does that? But that's neither here nor there. We like to make fun of Marco Andretti